Martin, I don't think they want to know why that's important.
Why is that important?
I'm actually, somebody asked you why that's important.
Why is that important?
Because if you're looking for funding on the state, city, or federal level, they have changed the system where you have to have a GATA certification and be pre-qualified in the system. So you can apply for a lot of funding, but if you're trying to apply on those different levels, you don't have this pre-qualification in the system, they won't even look at your proposal. That's important, don't you think?
Yes.
So we're going to learn about how to get GATA pre-qualified. Y'all want to know how to get GATA pre-qualified?
Yes.
Come on, get down here, y'all.
Yes.
You know, I told y'all before, I was a children minister for 10 years, right? And work with the kids, you like a little energy, right? Do you want to know how to get pre-qualified?
Yes.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah. That food kind of kicking in on me.
Oh my goodness. Look, don't fall asleep on us up here.
I'm not gonna fall asleep.
Give us
We're
10
trying to keep
jumping
you
jacks.
woke. Look, actually, you know, like this
10
food. Look.
jumping jacks. Till the wake you up.
I'm laying it, yeah, I'm laying it to the side.
Well, don't eat too hard.
Don't lean too hard. So, okay.
Oh, Marie, what's that? Tell her to log into the account and share the live. Yeah, thanks.
All right, so yeah, we can go ahead and get started. You got the title, Obtaining GATA Certification in Illinois. So as Dr. Camper said, this is our third session. So we're kind of talk to you all about how to start a nonprofit. And then from there, once you kind of get into, well actually, the foundation of a business and then how to start a nonprofit. And then once you start a nonprofit, it's really important to understand, you all can hear me all right, right? Okay, so then it's important to just understand, like, how do you go out to the government, city, state, and federal grants? And the only way that you can qualify is by being GATA certified, which is Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. That's what GATA stands for. So this is just the intro slides. We're gonna kind of go to the next one. Just a brief overview of what is GATA. So as I stated, it's the Grant Accountability and Transparent Act. So where it stands for that, it is the Illinois law that kind of transformed the way that people apply for, as I stated before, city, federal, and state grants. That's where you get the big money, as I call it, right? Those federal dollars, those contracts. So this is kind of where, when you're looking to kind of make change, whether that is in the South Suburban area, whether that's in Chicago, Cook County area, a lot of those $1 million grants that you may see, or for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, it comes through this particular system. So they streamline the process where all government agencies require you to be certified through this particular system. So it's just not enough to just have your nonprofit, but you got to get certified through this system to go after those particular dollars.
And do you know why they did that?
Fraud. To prevent fraud.
Not technically fraud, but a lot of times the city, the federal, and the state release the same type of funding for the same cause. And then you have all the big organizations would get all the funding on all levels. And so it's one way to monitor who getting what. So if you got, let's say you got Violent Prevention Fund under this program number on the state level, you can't get it on the city and federal level now. And so it's a way to monitor how money is going out into the community, because when you have organizations that have been around for many, many years and they're well known, of course they're going to get the most money, right?
Yeah.
So they say, okay, we want to invest into small businesses, right? Like us, we starting off with a small business with the goal of expanding. And so they put that mergement in place to monitor and prevent all the big organizations from getting all the funds while the small businesses have been left out.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It is.
You know, so Dr. Kemper kind of explained a little bit, but just understanding the GATA certification for nonprofits. So where it's you have level 1 grantees. So when you get to the place of now going to apply, and I'm going to show you all the website if I can go do that. But the benefit for nonprofit organizations is one, where again, it makes you eligible to apply for funding. So if you're not GATA certified, they won't even look at your application. If you're applying for a city, federal, or a state grant, right? So you gotta be GATA certified. It also helps to streamline the process for you when you are applying. They will have you upload your budget to this particular, what's called the GATA grantee portal. And so again, all of this is, I know it's like, oh wait, what are you saying? But I think you kind of understand as you're kind of going through the process, but just kind of help you understand just the benefits of it. It also helps you to understand and manage the different grants that you have, because any grants that you have received on, from government agencies, this system, you'll be able to see all of the grants that you receive, again, just from government agencies, so not from private foundations, anything like that. But this just kind of helps you to see everything, where they say you can accept or deny those type of contracts, they call them contracts, not necessarily grants, that you'll receive through the government agencies. Anything you want to say on that?
No, go ahead, go to the next one, that's fine.
And this right here is just looking at the eligibility and requirements to be GATA certified. So one, your organization must be registered as a nonprofit in the state of Illinois. So you have to be in good standing. So
Well, let's say, not necessarily non-for-profit. You could be a for-profit and still be GATA certified. The non-for-profit give you extra recognition for receiving funds, because sometimes we have funding opportunity. They look for if you have a 501c3 or if you're non-for-profit. But for the pre-qualification, you have to have your articles, and I know you're gonna touch on it, your articles of corporation, and have a number of documentation have to be completed. But the non-for-profit piece is an addition piece to that.
Right, so what Dr. Kemp is referring to, and I'll put nonprofit status because we're specifically talking about nonprofits. But let's say how the city of Chicago has contracts or bid for contracts, right? You do not have to have a nonprofit to put a bid in to go for a government contract. So, but this, where if you have a grant like the violence prevention grant, it may be specifically just for nonprofits. So this is where it's saying your nonprofit, in order to apply to be GATA certified, has to be in good standing, right? So that's just making sure you understand that.
Yeah, so your good standing comes with your articles of incorporation, right? Remember we talked about in the foundation, we kind of touched on the last session, but the first session, we went through the basic, EIN, articles of incorporation. So when they look into the system, and I know we're gonna go more in depth of all of this, and we're gonna show you all the screens of the GATA system and what it looks like. So the articles of good standing is attached to your articles of incorporation. And so with a non-for-profit, you have to do this annual reporting. And so if you're not in good standing with your articles of incorporation, it's gonna reflect that you're not in good standing. And so it kind of linked to the articles of incorporation piece. And that's where you apply, say, I want to have a non-for-profit, it's linked to the articles of incorporation. So let's say, for instance, I know we focus because we have non-for-profit. For individuals who have for-profit, you're not exempt from this process. So you would just have to look for funding that qualify you as for-profit, because there's going to be certain funding that say non-for-profit, education, whatever. So you have to do your due diligence when you're actually looking for funding when you're going through those NOFOs. Notice of funding opportunities is what they
I was
call
about
it.
to say, can you
So NOFOs.
Okay.
So a NOFO is pretty much when you go online and you're looking for any type of grant, it is called a NOFO. It's a notice of funding opportunity that regardless of what system you go through, that is what is considered. So you're looking at, okay, this is an opportunity to obtain this grant. So, but each grant has its own eligibility criteria. So you always want to look at that component when you're looking for grants.
And the next session, we'll actually be talking about more different places that you can look for grants, the different agencies that put out grants that you can look for. As we mentioned before, you got grants.gov, you have the Chicago Community Trust Foundation, they typically have grants, so there are a lot of websites that you can look for these grants to be applying. Again, just the other two was saying just experience in grant management. So what is your experience in managing a grant? Now, if you don't have experience, it's okay. Because when I applied in the GATA system, I really didn't have any experience myself either. And I didn't know what, when they were saying, oh, have you ever went through an audit? I had never did any of that, right? So don't allow that to intimidate you in that process, because you got to start somewhere, right? So Just to know that. You don't have to kind of worry, but you got to be able to show that you have been able to do the work. That's the thing.
And you have to show that you're going to put systems in place to manage it. But we're going to go to that.
So again, just kind of continuing about how to meet the prerequisites for the GATA certification. So again, your financial systems, your policies and procedures, your program and service delivery, your data management, your how transparent are you with your reporting. So what Dr. Kemper was referring to is that even if you don't have those particular systems in place, you can speak to how you will then be able to plan to have it in place. Because when you get to write in for grants, they are going to want to know how do you go about doing your program and service delivery. How do you go about doing your record keeping? How do you go about evaluating the work that you're doing? How do you know that what you're doing is successful? So even if you don't have that system in place, you can begin to say, hey, this is what we're implementing and will have within our organization, right? So that can be something that's key.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to? Okay.
No, I know we're going to go in depth in a lot of these when we go on certain slides. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it won't be as repetitive.
So this right here is the Illinois GATA grantee portal. So when you're looking at, as we're talking about signing up for the GATA portal, right? So it's grants.illinois.gov/portal/,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I kind of put it here where you can see it, where you will literally go to create account. That's where you will go, because once you go to create an account, then you will go into kind of getting everything you need. But this is how you go about getting GATA certified, by going to grants.illinois.gov/portal/, and then you create an account, and then it'll take you all through the series of steps that you need to go through.
And this is a very important step. Somebody asked me, why is that important?
Why is that important?
Because I don't think y'all want to know. Somebody asked me, why is this important?
Why is that important?
This is the very system that's going to link everything you need together in order for the state to see if you pre-qualified. So everything you're going to link together is going to be in this portal. When you submit a proposal for a notice of funding opportunity, they're going to check this portal.
Okay.
You can't be pre-qualified without this portal. This is the system that links everything together. All right? I got it? Yes.
So that gets checked into every time we go for a grant, so we don't have to try to.
City,
pull
federal, and
that
state
information.
level. Yes. On city, state,
federal, and
yeah.
state.
Yes.
So we don't have to try to pull that information.
No,
together
it's
every
all
time
going to
we
be in
apply.
here.
Oh, okay.
You can go here and check it. If you create an account right now, because anybody can, it'll tell you you're not in good standing if you have not linked your documentations to the systems. And so we're going to go slide by slide to kind of go more in depth of each component and how each one of them is kind of linked to the system. Okay?
So this is, I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's almost kind of like when you apply for your home loan. You got to have everything together and upload your documents, and then kind of go through. Say you're going through guaranteed rate, go through their system and make sure everything is good to get pre-qualified to even get looked at for whatever your.
Yes
same
and
thing?
no. Yes and no. So you're not uploading anything, right? So, and we're going to go more into it. Once you create it, it's going to have, and I don't know what the next slide is, but it's going to have all these links. Some things you got to link certain ID or UIE numbers, and you're just typing it into the system to give it permission to link to your SAMS.gov. But then the state automatically, when you register for this, it's going to take maybe 24, 48 hours to kind of confirm if you have articles of good standing. Do you have an EIN number? So some of the stuff, once you create the system, the state is going to link these different components in the system to determine your pre-qual. But it doesn't start until you actually register with this site.
And you have to do this yearly.
You know what? Yes, that is correct. So you have to actually, each year, you have to make sure that you are up to date with everything that's needed. Because if
You don't have to recreate an account every year. You have to say an
Just
account.
make sure it's established.
All your
Keep your records
documentation
up
needs
to
to
date.
be up.
Right.
Yes.
So this is actually what Dr. Kemper was referring to, if you want to talk about.
So when you get your pre-qualification, it's gonna tell you your status right here. If you pre-qualified, it's gonna be in green. If it's not, it's gonna be in red. However, these are all the components here. We're gonna go through each one by one. So the first one is your SAMS.gov, right? And so when you go to your SAMS.gov, you are going to complete the application in your SAMS.gov, and it may take about 10-day process. But once they approve your account, SAMS.gov is going to give you a UEI number. And once you get your UEI number, you got to come in here, and there's going to be a tab here. This is my account, so it's already, and they're going to have you to link your UIE number in the system. You see how you're not uploading nothing, but now you're putting stuff in here, and now they're going to verify if your information is correct. So once you link it, because right here it'll tell you to link it, you'll be able to link it, and once you put your UIE number in, it'll be able to say, oh, they're in good standing with this, right? If any of these items is not in good standing, you're not going to be pre-qualified.
Okay.
So you have to have a SAMS.gov account, which is a good thing because you can do a lot of grant searching and a lot of other things in your grants.gov. And then in your grants.gov, you can link a bank account information in that system. And if you're getting funds through certain systems, they can send it direct deposit to the account you have in your your SAMS.gov. So it have a lot of benefits to that site in general. And so even now, you can even look for funding on this site. So there's another opportunity to actually look for funding opportunities as well. And so it's important to understand the first steps. Well, they might not be the first step because you might want to do some of this first, but the first step of verification, they're going to look at, are you in the SAMS.gov and are you in good standing with that? SAMS.gov, you got to renew and confirm that every year.
Now, I know that some of you probably was going to have a question about, well, how do you go about getting certified through SAMS.gov, right? So, actually, let me get the EIN next one. So, let me go to that one first. So, here's how you kind of go to obtain your SAMS registration number. You really got to go to SAMS.gov, but first you got to have the EIN number, which is what you saw here. We talked about this kind of in the last session. Your EIN number is what you kind of get through IRS.gov. It's free to apply for it, and then once you get your EIN number, which through this is the website, so this is just kind of like for a refresher for some people who may not have been here or may have forgot, that you go through IRS.gov to get your EIN number, and then from there you can go. You got a question? Okay, I get
Is
it.
the EIN number the same as the FEI?
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
yeah. It's put the federal in here.
Yeah.
is. It was just sitting there, but I didn't say. Yeah. So how this
So
says,
this is your EIN. It's put federal EIN. Is employee identification number. That's all it is. If you're a sole proprietor, that your EIN is going to be your social security number. But when you have an organization, your organization is going to have its own EIN number. So when you're applying for funding under your organization, you will always put whatever EIN that's linked to that organization you have registered with the state. And so these, oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going so they can see it. So yeah, so just so you all, like I said, see where once you guys, I'm gonna get to your CON. But you saw it said EIN number in good standing, or that you got your EIN number. If you don't already have that, it's just showing you how you go to IRS.gov, and then you can click on apply for EIN number.
And there's only one pager.
Yes,
We went through that the first session. It's very simple.
Yeah, you had a question.
Hey, maybe like yesterday or the day before, I have a business and I was going through a rebrand and I tried to get another EIN number for the business. And, is there like a stall on these numbers now? Cause I've gotten them in the past. Have you guys been on there recently?
I don't know anything about a stall. Are you trying to get a brand new one, or are you trying to get a new one for the same existing organization?
Same, I'm doing a whole nother
Okay, a
rebrand
new-
for my company. So
Okay.
I was gonna, do a whole total rebrand. So what I'm seeing is I was on that site and I wasn't able to I've gotten them in the past.
So-
I have two already.
So I guess it depends. When you say new branding, are you using the same name and all of it?
No, different name.
Different name, so you're just
Yeah,
trying to start a new
whole other
business?
Company, right.
Okay, so I'm not aware of any delay.
So it is one thing on there.
Huh?
So they did update it, so some people would have to call that number. They would have on there that you cannot, get one, but you have to call and see exactly whatever they want you to do.
Okay, I just brought that up because I know some people are gonna go on there it was like it wasn't as easy as it's been in the past, like they had.
I went on there and did it recently and it came right away.
I just did a couple of days ago.
No, I did with the
I'm saying, how
number.
long ago, I'm saying this was a couple of days ago, that's what I'm saying.
So she said they just updated the system. We would have to go into the system and see what the updates was. But it can, it could be a number of factors, let's say that.
Okay.
And so you really want to know what the holdup is unless you call IRS and say, hey, I was trying to pull in this. Yes, just call them and they'll be able to give you direction. Because sometimes it may be you have more than one business in there and they're trying to make sure nobody fraudulently trying to use your information.
Okay.
Sometimes the IRS does that. Like, okay, let's see if this is really who they say they are. And so it's a matter of, like Ms. Johnson said, if there's some errors in the system, I would just call them to kind of see what do you need to do, because sometimes they can process stuff over the phone too.
They provide you with the number,
They do?
yeah.
So we have a hand in
I got a
front.
quick question, but then let you move on. So I was trying to change the name of my company. So I sent everything to the IRS to get the name changed, not the EIN. But should I wait in order to move forward with stuff? Because I've been waiting like months for them to change my name and they haven't sent me anything.
Yeah.
Or can I do it under my old name and will it change,
So,
will it still
before
go through?
I will call them in the morning and see where they're at in that process of changing the name.
Okay,
Sometimes stuff may be in the system, but they haven't even sent out documentation to confirm it.
got it.
And so I would take that step first, because if you're going to apply for your grants under your new name,
Yeah,
then you want to make sure everything's linked. Because if you apply for grants under your old name, they're going to be looking for that old brand.
yeah.
And so it's just a matter of calling them and see where they are in that process. And maybe they can expedite the process.
So the IRS has been backed up ever since COVID. And it took them 6 months to change my, sole proprietor to an escort. So it's gonna take a while with the IRS, but we waiting on the IRS start on a new business. No, I'm joking.
That's an option. It may be quicker process and timely,
It's time.
but then you have to do the articles of corporation and all that stuff. I would say call. If you got a good person, they may put some keys in there for you. But it all depends on who you get that day. So you got somebody that say, hey, you know what, you sent this in July, it's been so many months, let me key this in manually for you. You have some of them that does that. So I would just call them to kind of see what they say and then take it from there.
Thank you.
So again, as I was saying, that this is a process of how you go about obtaining your SAMS registration number. You need your SAMS unique number to then go to apply for, to do the prerequisite for the GATA system. And so this kind of gives you that information and how to kind of go about it, where you need your legal business name, you need the EIN number, your primary contact information. That's going to be very important. Don't put contact information where you don't check the email, because that's where they're going to be sending updates to you. So you don't want to make that mistake. So make sure that it's the email that you check. And then the cage identification number is pretty much basically, that's the area of the focus of the work that you'll be doing. So for me, I think I picked like the most general cage code that I could pick. And I tried to put it around like youth, community development, because that is my focus. And if you see if applicable, is what's there. So whatever kind of fits your needs, that's what you're going to pick when it comes to selecting what's called the cage code. So anything you want to say to that?
No, and you'll be able to get your cage number through SAMS. And so once you identify the type of organization, your taxonomy codes and stuff like that, they kind of, when you go on SAMS.gov, you'll be able to click on your active organization, you'll be able to see a UIN, and you'll also be able to see your cage that's assigned to your organization. Because these are numbers that are going to be needed for your pre-qualification as well as when you do funding opportunity. They may not ask for your UIE number, but they will ask you for that cage sometime on certain applications for grants. So you want to be able to know where to look for and find that information at when you come across your application cage number. What is a cage number, right? You go to SAMS.gov, active, it should come up to the right and you'll be able to see what that number is and put that on your application. So they check, cross-reference all of that information.
And
Yes.
make sure that they go to the direct page, because they will email you and try to charge you, but it's not, it's free.
Yes, I was thinking about that when Dr. Marlin was speaking about emails. Once your email's in the system, you're gonna have a lot of people try to email you like, oh, you need to update your SAMs.
Yeah.
If they try to update it for you, they're gonna charge you $300 other than logging in and do what you need to do and to confirm that everything's still as accurate. If you got a link, they're trying to charge you for SAMs,
It's not the right one.
click off of it. You don't have to pay no money to update yourself. You just log into your SAMs and they're gonna say update profile. You click that update and they're gonna ask you, did anything change? You say no, submit, you good. Are we clicking on links?
No.
I think some people want to spend some money here. Are we clicking on links?
All right, so, oh, sure.
Would y'all, let us, like, would y'all be able to do a tutorial one classroom for like one person here?
Like what you mean exactly?
So, like, they actually had that on Sam's.
The
Show
two-
you all- yeah, they
the
had it on
different
Sam's.
components. And then you know what's also been a great help? YouTube have everything. They tell you how many times I Google YouTube to try to find out some information. That's part of the learning process for me.
YouTube is definitely your best friend. The next thing is that obtain a DUNS number, so the Dun and Bradstreet number, which it is free to obtain one.
However, you know they just deleted that.
Yeah, so that's no longer a requirement.
Yeah, it used to be a requirement, and even having the DUNS give you a lot of opportunities for federal, a lot of types of good stuff. However, recently, you may go through the process and you may not see a requirement for the DUNS because they merged the DUNS site with SAMS, so it's no longer a requirement as of this year, I believe.
They was charging anyway.
No, it was free to get.
It was free.
It was some,
Everything that's free, you're gonna have a third-party person trying to profit from it. EIN, free. SAMS, free. DUNS, free. The only thing you're paying for is your articles of incorporation. Okay? Everything else is free.
I have a quick question for number 3, the financial information. So if you just get started, will they kick you out if you put zero? Do they want like a projected of what you think you're gonna get, or they want money that you already?
So if you get, so with grants it's a little different. They don't ask you for finances for a grant you're applying for. They're gonna ask you, do you have a financial system in place to monitor the grant funds that they do give you? That's a whole different process. So if you're applying for a loan, yes, they want to know how much you made to pay this money back. But for grants, they don't ask for your financial statements.
So you could just say, I'll have an accountant. So if they give me $100,000, you can say, I'm gonna use X amount of dollars for an accountant, for bookkeeping, for this, that, and the other, and just project, because that's projected.
If you don't have it in place,
You would-
yes,
but-
you say, I'm gonna use this funding to put these systems in place to make sure I'm complying with what you want. If they see that you're going to use the funding to make sure that you're in position to give them what they want, they look at that. I'd apply for a grant. I didn't have a location in the cluster area. So what I put in my grant, I'm going to find a location upon receiving funds in this area.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go get a location in this area. You didn't give me no funds. But if you give me some funds and you're gonna pay for my occupancy, my rent, and everything else, I'm gonna write it in my grant, right? I say write everything in your grant.
Well, and then also, just to kind of elaborate, when you're doing the prerequisite for GATA, they ask you like, what is your annual revenue or expected revenue, if I can remember correctly?
Projected, yeah.
Projected. So it's like you can put that this is what you project to bring in with your organization, or this is currently where you're at for your annual revenue. So if it's at 0, it's at 0. It's okay to put that.
Okay.
If you're looking at $100,000 or $50,000, that's what you can put that in the system. It's just asking what right now that you're looking at revenue for your organization. You put into that system, and it will change.
And so also, do you put yourself, remember we talked about that last week about paying yourself, so do you put like your actual, yourself, your name, like, hey, this.
I put my name on the line.
Okay.
There's no discrepancies.
Okay.
But you don't have to. You can do program. You can put it on an administrative and roles, but then eventually they want to know who these people are.
Yeah.
And so if you know who's going to be actively operating in these roles, put it in up front.
And then you
You
pay
can-
taxes on that yourself, individually, you pay your own taxes on the grant that you receive as salary, right?
Salary. However, I have a system to do that.
Got it.
I'm not doing all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In my grant, I read in ADP and Augusto.
Okay.
So they're gonna pull money out of the bank account
Okay,
to pay my staff, for taxes,
yeah.
for the taxes for the organization. Probably don't need none if you're not for profit. And they're gonna pay the IRS, and they're gonna do all my reporting for me. So when it's time for me to report my finances for personnel, benefits, and stuff like that, I'm just going into that system and printing out my reports. I'm not calculating all that. No, I'm not gonna have to write manual checks. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna give you $100 a month, and you can do it for me.
Right.
Right.
You gotta think smarter and how, and if you have a grant that you can write these systems in, then you wanna make sure that you're going to provide the most accurate information that is possible. Why not get a third-party person that's not gonna charge you much of anything, write them in that grant to have them do your reporting for you, because you are going to have to do a financial audit.
Yeah.
So what company does that financial audit you just?
You have many of them. You got Gusto, you got ADP. I mean, you could Google. You got many of them. Square. And so there's a number of them. So when we look at the SAMs, you know, these are different things you want to be able to make sure you have when you fill an application. Because now in this application, they're going to ask you all this detail and information about your organization. And so it's important to kind of know what you want to do before you kind of go into the system. You can't go into the system, don't know what direction you want to go into. You got to have some sense of direction where you want to go as it relates to the system. Because they're going to ask you questions related to your organization. Okay?
All right, so this is just, I was just going to the dnb.com website, but as Dr. Kemper said, you don't necessarily need it anymore. But I just put it in here just so you can be able to see the website and see how you can obtain a free Dun and Bradstreet number. So you can get it for free, yes.
So what is the purpose of the DMV?
So that's a great, well, originally, to get it, it's like if you were trying to apply for getting credit, if you was looking to go to get the SAM's unique ID number, it was needed for that. But they have now kind of merged the systems, as Dr. Kemper just stated. So it's not necessarily being used as much as it used to be.
But that was like one of the requirements.
It was a requirement before, but they merged, yes. And that was recent.
But is it still wise to have one when it comes to business? Because doesn't the DMV focus on business credit and business, business credit and business, I guess the best way to put it is business credit, and allow you to see the history or see your credit rating?
I would say you can still, I mean, it's free, right? So it doesn't hurt to apply for it and go and have it so you can have that for your business, not just for a nonprofit, right? So I do have a DUNS number for my organization. So yes, you can go and you can apply for it. It doesn't hurt to have that, especially.
I have
make
one
sure
too.
you
It was a
everything.
requirement back then.
That's the thing, like with grants, when you was getting grants, they wanted you to have that done number. So that's why we all got it, right? Because we wanted to get
Right.
grants.
Yes, yes.
I do, but I'm doing it wrong.
So if you have two different EINs numbers, you're gonna have to do two different DONS number, because you gotta link those EINs to the DONS application. And that's how they kind of look and run credit. If you have credit lines and stuff like that, it's gonna be according to your EIN number. Your EIN number is just like your social security number. It's your unique identifier to your organization. Yes.
If we can go back to the last slide about the cage code, so I registered on SAM.com for the UEI number, but I'm having a hard time figuring out how to get the cage code.
It should be on there. If you get approved for your SAMS.gov, if you go under active, you know how when you first log in and say active, because they changed the website. Now it say active. You click on active, and it tell you how many organizations active, maybe 1, 2, 3, how many of them you list. You can list more than one organization under your SAMS.gov. You don't have to create multiple SAMS in .gov. You can have 3 entity, 2 entity, and all original, all under that. But they always have their own UIN number, and they always still have their own cage number. So if you log into the SAMS.gov, it's gonna have a little circle and say active, or you're gonna say inactive. If it's active, you clicked on it, even if it's inactive. But on the right, it pops up now, and it's gonna show you your entity, the name, your UIE, UI E number, your case number, and usually the address that has been registered for that, and then the status of that entity.
So is it possible that they haven't granted me a cage code yet?
It's not there yet,
Maybe.
so you have to look.
I mean, I looked, I can't find it.
Okay, so are you able to log in later, and then I can kind of show you? Yeah, because it should. I would say if you have that, it should already be linked, because that's part of the process.
Okay.
And we're gonna get him, and then Miss Diana.
With the DONS number, how can you have that active? You know, sometimes you sign for a DONS number, you like, I wanna see something reporting. But what products can you get from, just getting a DONS? Is that possible, right? You sign your DNB, and you look at it, see what's reporting, or do you go to nav.com and look at that?
Nav.com, really the DONS, link you to the NAS.gov. So it's like a lot of working components.
Yeah.
That's gonna be another session. And so when you got the DONS, it give you ability to link to sub sites where you could go on the nav.com, and you can see where your credit is as an organization. Are you A, B, C, D, F, or whatever that
Wow,
may
that's
be.
crazy, okay.
And you'll be able to see it. So if you develop any business credit and you're paying your stuff on time, it'll tell you exactly where you are at with your credit on there. Ms. Danielle?
You have to have a certain credit score to even apply for a grant?
No, they don't run credit.
Oh.
Loan, yes, they do. However, you cannot be have criminal backgrounds and certain things will exempt you from it. So they do ask those questions. You know, are you currently this, and this, and you got to answer those questions. So, and that's about the business owner. Yes.
But how strict are they on the deadlines as far as dates? Like today, I need to apply for somebody 16. If I don't apply.
If you have a close date, that's a close date.
What?
They're not going to accept applications after a close date. I was working on one grant like for 3 hours. Their system was messing up. And I emailed them, I've been doing this, they're like, can't help it.
Is it 12 o'clock?
It may be midnight, but if it's not there, some may say 6, and some may, it depends on the grant. But we gotta move, I know, Dan ain't here to tell us, look.
I'm moving. So this right here is just kind of talking about the process in creating your SAM's unique ID number. So where you go to sam.gov, you complete the registration, you review and submit it. I mean, obviously it's not really just that simple, but it's not difficult, but just kind of help you understand. And then after submitting your registration, you'll receive a confirmation email from sam.gov that you have then received your SAM entity identification number. So not the IM, but the unique number from there. This right here, I did like just to give you a website, like to understand what the website looks like. Again, as Dr. Kemper has said before, you will see a lot of websites saying, hey, use this website, we can help you get your SAM unique number, and then they want to make you pay for it. So make sure at the end of that website it says .gov. That's very important because that's where it's going to be free. If you see where it says 100% free, they don't charge you for it, right? And then you would do the get started. That's what you would hit for this. But you have to make sure that you have that EIN number first, and then from there you kind of get started in the process to get your SAM unique number. But this is the website. I just want to make sure you all knew what the website was, so you don't kind of get tricked into something else.
Sam.gov.
Yeah, just that simple. Sam.gov. Okay. Any other questions about Sam.gov?
I just want to tell y'all, when y'all do this application, make sure you take your time and do it right the first time. Because if you mess up somewhere, you gotta start all over.
I was just gonna ask, do you have to finish it all at once, or can you keep bits and pieces?
You can do bits and pieces. You can
You
say,
save it, okay.
yeah.
Just make sure
Don't get anxious on the application because you see a lot of tabs.
Yeah.
If you take each question one by one, each question add to another question, right? So if you need to stop and save and do some work and come back, just pick up where you left off. The process is getting it done. I know when I see them, I'm like, this is live. Oh my goodness. But I got through the process, as you see where I'm at today, right? If I got through it, you can get through it.
So again, before you all go to the Illinois Grantee portal, make sure that you go do sam.gov first. You gotta do that first. So the first step is your EIN with irs.gov. Then after you done got your EIN number, your articles of incorporation, then you go to SAM.gov. So just making sure you understand that process and those steps that you have to go through.
Yeah, and even with the part of the registration for the GATA is gonna ask you for your EIN as part of the application to create a portal. And so you wanna make sure you have that on hand.
So this right here just giving you an example because in the GATA system, it says that, hey, are you pretty much in good standing? And how do you tell that is by going to the Secretary of State website, and you can literally, if there's a section where you can even Google Illinois Good Standing Certificate, and you can type in, once you kind of go to this website, you can type it in as your organization or business name, and then it will tell you if you're in good standing or not. And then from there, you know, for some grants, when you opening up for a lot of grants, sometimes when you're applying for it, they want you to actually give them this certificate.
And it's only $5.
Yeah, it's only $5 for nonprofit. And then
And you get it right away, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's 25 for profit.
Huh?
25 for profit.
Oh,
yeah,
it's 25 for y'all, that's making a profit. But non-for-profit is $5.
and when you're opening up a bank account, they want to see again that you're in good standing. So this is just something to just keep in mind, and I just wanted you to all understand when we're talking about being in good standing, what does that look like for your nonprofit?
And even if your stuff is not in good standings, it's okay. Pay that fee and it'll be back in good
Oh yeah,
standing.
you can get it in like 30 minutes. You can get it back in good standing.
Yeah, in 30 minutes. So if you haven't been in good standing for a year, you're gonna pay that whole year worth of fees. But you can pay that fee and you'll be in good standing. And so it's not a bad thing. When you say, oh no, just pay the fee. If they give you the option to pay the fee and they didn't delete it out of the system, you can always reinstate it. Whatever that fee is, you just pay it. That's key.
Pay your
All
debt.
right.
Pay the plate.
Drop that bag.
Okay. So here is, we talked about systems, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, y'all got it.
We ain't got no systems in place. Oh my goodness. We talked about systems, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. That's a little better.
EIC.
So this is part of the GATA system. Understand this. And so in the system, there are, I think it's some slides missing too. But we'll go back to the top once we finish these. But in the system, part of it, you're going to have the ICQ, which is internal control questionnaires. Know how we talked about if you don't have systems in place? This is right here, then ask you, okay, do you have quality of management system in place? Do you have a financial and regulatory reporting in place? Do you have a budgetary control, a process and procedure, how you spending money, or the approval process, if it has to be signed off on? All of this. Do you have an audit in place? So they're going to ask you all these different things, right? You can say yes if you putting them in place. Key is you need to put them in place, right? Because when they come out and audit and you say, oh, you have a quality of management system, when they come in and say, what is your system, right? They want to know what is that system. You get to define what that system is for your organization. They ask you, are you doing it manually in Excel? If that's how you do it, that's fine. You say yes. If you're using a database or an app or something to collect that data, you can put that. They're going to ask you questions, and all these questions is yes or no. And if you have these systems in place, they're going to grade you on this. You see here, they say, okay, you have that many questions, you answer that many questions. And so you want to make sure you go through each one of these and you ask yourself, what can I put in place for each of these items? So when I did mine, I have this stuff, I was building an empire, right? I was building policies and procedures. I was building a structure. I was building, and I knew that's what I was doing. So I was in the process of putting all this stuff in place, but I know this is what they're going to look for. If I told them I have it, they're going to expect me to have it. It's not difficult to put systems in place and know your system if you're the one putting it in place. A lot of times we have other people do our own work, and we don't even know what they put in there, and then we get audited, they were like, well, this is not what it says right here. As you get somebody else to create your procedures and policy and structure, you need to read it and you need to know it front and backwards. Because they're going to want to know, are you doing what you say you're going to do? And what you're doing is not based off what you said, it's what you get documented in this policy, this procedure, or whatever it is, this business plan. They're gonna look at this and say, are you doing what you said you're gonna do? You say, well, oh, do this, this, and this. Well, this ain't what this says. When you get audited, that's what they're looking for. Are you doing what you said you're gonna do? So you get to define what that process is. You got an option to do things the old school way. It may take you a little more time, a little more focus. You want to work smarter, not harder. Get a find it in an app, you know, something. We talked about business in a box, right? You got all the policies and procedures you can download from there. You get it for so many days for free. Download whatever you want within that free time frame. Save them to your computer and revise them according to what it is you say you're trying to do. And it worked for me. I had an audit when I got my license. I pulled all these. I didn't even use my own business in the box. I used my sister's business in the box. And she's like, oh, I got this. Oh, whew, I ain't got to write that stuff. You know, it takes time to write it manually. So I took all those policies. I saved them to my computer. I revised every last one of them according to the rules and regulations and stuff that the state wants me to have, because you got to make sure you have that stuff up in there. And I put it together. And when I got my audit, you know what the lady told me? These are the best policies I've ever seen. I'm like, gee, thanks. And so when it's time about audit now, I know that's one thing I ain't got to worry about, right? I got audit in a couple of weeks. But I know one thing I ain't got to worry about is my policies. Because she was amazed by them then, she's going to be amazed by them again. So I'm going to leave them in place. I might break them for direct commission for the state, I'm leaving them alone.
So I do want to add this, and I saw he had his hand up. Again, if you don't have some of these things that's on the board that you see, so let's say, for example, it's saying cost principles or financial regulatory reporting. You like, I don't understand what that is, or I don't have a template. I said this before, and I'm going to say this again. ChatGPT can really be your best friend.
Yes, it is.
Huh? It don't work? Oh, I mean, listen, it depends on how, so the one thing I've learned with ChatGPT, but you gotta, so with ChatGPT, a lot of times it's about your wording, right? And then I think if you have to like ask it sometimes multiple times, and then you have to say, hey, go back, I need you to kind of rework this, and I'll ask it a different particular way. So you might not get the answer the first time the way that you want it with ChatGPT, but you kind of have to rework it a few times.
What was the one y'all use? OpenAI?
ChatGPT. No, just chat.openai.com.
Chat.open.
Chat.openai.com. They have a free version and then they have the paid version. The free version, you literally, again, you play around with it enough times, you would kind of get to understanding it and to see, but you can ask questions to it. You can even use it to help you write a grant. You can say, hey, rewrite this to sound better, or rewrite this from a grant perspective for focus on community development. Now, don't take it word from word. I think that some people might don't try to plagiarize exactly, but use it to help you to your benefit. If you know that, hey, I'm not the best writer, but write everything in your own words and then ask ChatGPT to rewrite it for you.
Can you say the name again?
Chat.openai.com. So CHA.openai.com.
I never used them, but it would be interesting to see what they're about. So you can write that down and text it to me.
OpenAI.com. Has anybody else in this room used ChatGPT? Okay, so anybody care to share their experience with using ChatGPT?
I applied for this. I'm a filmmaker, so I applied for this grant, but I don't write grants initially.
Hold on, we can't hear him. He was trying to explain about his experience. Go ahead.
So by using ChatGPT, he's saying the right thing, because I was like confused at it at first, but then I got to playing with it and it worked for me. So I applied for a grant almost 5 months ago, but I used for my question, because they give you questionnaire. So I used the questionnaire questions, I threw it in ChatGPT, and they gave me like a 7-paragraph explanation of what that question were. But like he said, don't plagiarize. I kind of just used what I needed in that facility, and I got the grant.
Nice.
So the church I belong to, our headquarters is out of Anderson. So we're under their 501c3. That's how we kind of like do our taxes and stuff like that. How would I go about getting state-funded grants? Because technically, like, we're under a 501c3 that's out of a different state. So do I qualify for Illinois? Would I have to apply in Indiana? Like, how do you do that?
You have to apply, every state have its own regulations. So if you have a 501c in a different state, that doesn't grandfather you in to have a 501c3 in this state, because every state have their own regulations
Right.
and requirements.
I was say, am I even qualified to, can I even, like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, you can have an organization in all 50 states if you want.
okay.
You just gotta, in every state, you just gotta make sure you know the state laws and rules and regulations in that state. So you can have an organization anywhere.
Right, I probably gotta contact them to let them know, hey, by the way, I'm writing a grant for, or I'm getting ready to prepare this grant for X amount of dollars for XYZ, and send it to them, and then, as well as, like you said, having your systems in place, where they know, like, okay, this is what my systems are, this is what my checks and balances are for whatever we're trying to do, this is what, okay, alright,
Yeah, you can always apply for 501c3 in the state you're applying for too. So
Right.
that way you still get those exemptions.
okay, yeah,
So that's something that you may wanna talk to them and see,
yeah,
yeah.
So what I believe I hear you saying is that the nonprofit is in Indiana,
right,
but you're doing work right now in Illinois.
yeah, I would like to,
So, yeah, you would like to. So I would say that you actually have to apply for then a nonprofit status in Illinois. Because then, right now, that nonprofit is registered in Indiana. So it's not registered in the state of Illinois. So which means you're probably not gonna be able to apply for the, like, grants within the state or even apply in the GATA system because that's in Indiana, not in Illinois.
right,
So they would have to kind of get the same type of system that they set up in Indiana, they would have to do the same process and then set it up in Illinois.
okay. Okay, so it's a lot of little behind the scenes work I gotta make
Yeah.
sure and check with, okay.
So you don't have reciprocity in different states, each state is individual, that's what you're saying?
Each state has its own laws and regulations when it comes to like nonprofit status, like the way that they kind of go about doing things. Now you do have national organizations like the Red Cross,
Yeah, but they have to qualify for national
right.
certification. And most
NAACP?
businesses,
like
doesn't have that, and so, yes.
Okay, last question about the grant. So, I don't know if you all have ever seen this, so I work primarily in TV and film. And because they're on strike, I applied for a grant as just myself, so, and they granted me a grant. It was like a creative grant, and I didn't have to go through like, I just had to apply, go and put my personal information in, but it was like none of that, none of that.
So that's a great question that you just asked.
Totally different things.
Yeah, and that's what we want to make sure we specify this. This right here
That's
is
just only for nonprofit.
No. This is
Okay.
for, so the GATA system that we're talking about, all of this process is if you're applying for state and federal and city grants. So a lot of times when it comes to like now you're trying to apply for a grant from government agencies, they require you to be GATA certified. Now what you probably referring to, let's say the city of Chicago maybe has something for artists, which sometimes they do, or the
It was
state
like
of
the
Illinois.
state of Illinois or
Yeah,
something.
state
Yeah.
or Cook County. Sometimes they have it on an individual basis where like an artist, a person that's doing film, they don't require you to kind of do all of the extra stuff that you have to do for an organization because it's based off individuals.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if the state, city, or county put out a grant or a NOFO, a notice of funding opportunity, just make sure I clarify that, they want you to be GATA certified.
And then you gotta remember too, if you get it from a third party receiver and you're a sub-recipient, they have to go through this process. And
So
you
they
can get
probably
sub-recipients or contractors to do the work. And you get money through, even though it's originally through a state fund, you not really have to go through the red tape because you're only a sub-recipient.
Okay.
So they said, we're gonna do all these services and we're gonna contract people to do all these different things, and they look for people to do the work and release funds to individuals to do the work.
Okay.
But they still have to go through the process if they got state
probably
funding.
need to- Okay, because I was a little nervous. Like,
You could be a sub-recipient, that's a whole nother process where you're getting funding under organization that has funding from the state. So that's a whole nother thing.
Got it.
Okay, so in this here, and when you are going through the GATA system, you're going through, they're gonna ask you about, the indirect costs. And so you can do the 10%, you could negotiate, or you could waive your right to get indirect costs. Once you put in this system, this is what you could apply for in your application when it comes down to your budget. Now, indirect costs, you can give the organization 10% of whatever the grant is. So if you got a $500,000 grant, you can allocate $50,000 towards an indirect cost. So an indirect cost is other fees and expenses that is outside what you actually incorporated into the budget. And so they say, oh, you need some overhead costs, some other expenses. You could cover some of those expenses in indirect costs. But you have to be able to map out and explain in that budget how you're going to spend those indirect costs. So they usually have the 10%, which is the de minimis, whatever it's called. Can't even see it over there. You can negotiate and say, I want more than 10%. You want to negotiate and get more than 10%? You can do that. You have that right. You say, well, I think we should get 25%. But you got to justify why you can do 25. 10% they're going to give you automatically, unless you waiver it. But you have to be able to market in here. So we kind of got some of the screens. So this is what they look like. They're going to ask you to select one of the three. Can you move it over this way, son? To your... yeah. So you get the three. They're going to ask you... so you get to choose federal rate, state rate, or the minimis rate. So each one of these, you get to select which one you want to do. But you got to remember, or you could waive your right to even get an indirect cost. They look at this when you're actually doing your funding. And so because if you apply and say, okay, I'm going to do the 10%, you're going to have to, you can't do no more than 10%. If you negotiated and you could do 25%, you go all the way up to 25%. It don't have to be the max, but it can be. But when you go to your right zone. So when you select it, they're gonna send you this right here to say, oh, okay, this is what you did. You waived. I changed that. This was the old one. And so it tells you this is how it look. On this day from this time, it's waived. So waive me, okay, I'm gonna zip this, I'm not gonna receive nothing. That's old, y'all. I updated that. When I learned the process, I said, oh, that ain't what I really want. I go with some. So this is just a tab for that one. And so just tell you once the application is complete, like, okay, it's completed, this is what you said, this is how long it's good for, and this is who managing the information. And so it just kind of walk you through the process of what you can do as indirect costs. So you could pay, for, let's say you have program staff, a supervisor, clinicians, or whatever, but then let's say you want to pay HR because HR was not in a grant. You could allocate funds and the indirect costs to cover other expenses, salaries, in other areas that's not actually in that grant budget. Okay.
Is there a benefit to waiving that 10%? I mean, I know that's 10% more funding for yourself, but is there a benefit?
No, it's no benefit for you to waive it.
Okay.
It really not.
Okay.
You could use the 10% or you don't have to use the 10% when you're applying for the grant. It just said, okay, I'm gonna tell y'all I'm gonna use the first 90% and 10% is just gonna cover this, and this. But it'll give you flexibility where you could cover additional overhead costs and expenses and stuff like that.
So it'd be best not to waive it.
No, don't waiver, because you don't have to use it. It's only gonna be in your grant if you allocate that 10% or whatever that is in your grant. You don't have to put it in there.
But do you get dinged if you don't?
No, you don't. Whatever you put in your grant, that's what they're gonna keep you accountable for. You don't have to do it in direct costs in your grant. No, it's not a requirement.
How long has this GATA certification been in place? Cause
I believe GATA came in place maybe 2 years ago. Nobody really knew about it. That's when they started merging systems.
Okay, I applied for GATA in 2021 and I got it, but I don't remember, there wasn't all this involved.
It's there. You just don't, if you don't click on every little tab, yeah, it's there. If you don't click on it, you're not gonna see it. Like even for the questionnaire, it don't just go into the drop down. You gotta click the little button and then you go onto that. You have to do an ICQ, the internal control questionnaire, once you get approved for a grant. They're not gonna give you a grant without that being approve. And so you can go years without doing one, but once you get approved, they're like, you need to complete this.
I must have done it.
And so it's a requirement
Okay.
in the system. Well, before you go down to the bottom, let's go back up to the top, because we missed a few slides, and there's some very important things we have to discuss. To this one right here, number 7. So we talked about the SAMS.gov, we talked about the EIN. So you got federal excluded party lists. And so let's say if you received funding in the past and you didn't do right by the funding. So they came and do the audit, you spent the money. How many of you know, what was it, the PPP? Somebody bought the Mercedes or something, some $200 million, 200 something car, and they went to jail, right? I'm pretty sure they on that excluded party list, right? They can't get no more funding. So what happens is, if you get funding and you mismanage the funding, they could put you on the list that prevent you and your organization from receiving funding in the future. So when they look through, these are the requirements, they're looking at your SAMS.gov, they're looking at your federal identification number, they're gonna say, oh, is there an excluded party? Have they been exempt from receiving funding, right? So it's always good to know whatever you want with that grant, put it in the budget. If they approve the budget,
It's yours.
it's yours.
But do what you said you're gonna do with the money.
Yes, so if you know you want to pay yourself whatever, put it in that budget. Don't say I'm gonna give myself 50,000 and they should know my salary is 100.
So,
Because they're gonna come do that financial audit and what's gonna happen? They're gonna say you mismanaged funds and they're gonna make you pay it back.
So is that a permanent, because I know somebody, a friend of mine is an accountant, and they was doing some shady stuff, and she was doing it the right way, they was doing it the wrong way, and she was like,
That's good. People, you gotta remember, you gotta have your own integrity.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
You get to choose who you work with.
yeah.
Just like as business owners, you get to choose who you're gonna come under you. If you have integrity, like I'm not gonna be responsible because I gotta sign off on this, I'm not gonna play parts of it because it may fall back on me too.
Because what they do is, they was doing it, she came in and she's trying to clean it up for them. And I think what she thought is that she was just gonna play the game. She was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. She said, I'm gonna do what you hired me to do, but moving forward, I don't think they're gonna be able to get more money because there's some real shady stuff going on.
Well, when they do the audit
That's
would
what she
determine.
said.
The audit would, they're gonna do a program audit. They say, have you did what you say you're gonna do programmatic wise? So if you say you're gonna provide this, that, and other to the community or whatever great things, if you're gonna do your arts and crafts, and teach 12 kids or whatever it is, and they make it very specific. You wanna know how many percent. So they're very detailed. And so in addition to the program audit, they're gonna do a financial audit. They know how much they gave you. If you go into the controller office, it's all public record. They're gonna go, oh, we gave you this. They're not only making it public, they're gonna let you know you go log your own name information in the system, and they're gonna show you everything they gave you up until this point. So you can't deny it. Once it's in the state controller office, that check's coming within the next 24 hours. Once they hit the system, they don't play around with it. It's a matter of getting to the system. That's a whole other
I
thing.
have a question about this audit. Like, I was with this person that was starting a ministry, and I told them that they had to report all the money that they was taking in, and they told me they didn't, and I knew that they did. So I removed myself from the trustee board, because I didn't want that falling back on me if my name had been on the paperwork, because that's embezzlement, correct? And I would've did time. So I immediately removed myself.
So it's quite a few things. You could be in prison, you could be fined, you're gonna pay the money back for sure. They're gonna put you on the excluded list, parties list, and you can't apply for funding. If you know what you wanna do, just put it in the budget.
Right. And
It's not complicated.
I mean, this person knows that this money's
Yeah.
got to be coming.
yeah, so, I mean, you gotta excuse me, I'm, fairly new. So I thought like those grants come in like standardized amounts, like 75, 150, 25.
Every grant is
So just
different.
write out what you need and just create a
So-
budget and make sure your budget is honest and true, and you're gonna use everything that you said.
Yes,
And then-
every notice of funding opportunity have its own maximum amount of money you can ask for.
Oh, okay.
So you got some that's $1 million.
Yeah,
For one,
but if
you
you
got
need-
some,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you gotta go up to the
yeah,
million.
you know what I mean? Yeah.
You got some for 10,000. You got some for 300. You got some for 200. You got some for 150. You got some for 500. Every notice of funding opportunity have its own set allowance of what you can, ask for up into for that NOFO according to that proposal you can
Okay.
put in, and then you just kind of play with the numbers. Or I need this, this, and this. How much they're gonna cost? How much they got left?
Right.
You got to make sense.
And just be honest and be
Yeah.
straight up about it, because they don't, yeah.
And that's key. And then we talked about the state secretary, your articles of incorporation. Then you could be put on the stop payment list. That means you may got some funding you already got approved for, but if I don't feel you managing the funds correctly, I'll put you on the stop payment.
Yeah.
You get in the system for stop payment, you can do all the work you want. You ain't getting no checks.
I don't blame you.
Think about it.
What if you underuse the money? Like, say for instance, if you did everything that you said you were gonna do in the budget and you still have money left.
Then it goes back to the state if they paid you. If they paid you like advance payments instead of reimbursements, then you have to pay that money back, whatever you didn't use.
And the goal is not to give them back any money.
Yeah, and that's the goal. So, like, usually maybe a month after, let's say the state kind of delayed in giving you a payment, so you missed a month or two. So you could revise your budget to allocate those 2 months of funds towards something else. And so there are revisions you can do to budgets. And so, but it has to be approved before you can implement those new expenses or costs you included into that budget. So there's ways around that. Like, look, you didn't get my money like a month late. Look, I have this whole month of salary that I ain't paying nobody yet. So we're gonna push this somewhere else. What else do I need? And then you kind of work with the process. As long as it's fall and it's going to be within the scope of your work, you can. You can, because they got grant line items. So grant line items are things, let's say you want to help the community and you want to do some bus cars, you want to do this, that, and the other, you can ask for grant line items that's kind of specialty to whatever you're doing. So it may say, oh, my grant line item may be, okay, that could fall into different things. It may be, additional assistance in different areas. Yes.
When applying for like grants and stuff, do they, based on like, what your, income is?
No.
Okay.
Grants is grants. So, no, go back to that one. I think it's another thing that we haven't touched on just yet.
The DHS.
Number 7. Yes. So, we talked about stop payment and then the sanction list. You could be put on the sanction list as well. And so, when they're doing pre-qualification, they looking at your SEMS, your EIN, your articles of corporation, but they're also checking, have you been excluded? Are you on the sanction list? Are you on the stop payment? These are the things right here that would prevent you from getting a pre-qualification. If all this right here is good, you good. If one of these things is in red, you're not pre-qualified. That means you need to take action and get that in good standing.
Dr. Amber,
Yes.
so if you're not in SAMS.gov in good standing, will it reflect in your data?
Yes, it will show right here, not good standing. It would be red. If you allow your articles of incorporation to lapse, you didn't pay that fee, it's gonna be in red. EIN, you good, because that's not an annual thing. But if you have any issues with the state on the federal level with receiving funds or not doing what you're supposed to, you'd be put on this list. I was in a meeting with some of the state folks, and they said, well, we can't pay them because they not no more because they not pre-qualified in the sale. They stopped their continuation.
Yeah.
I said, oh my goodness, they are serious. You got 1 year, but once you went red, they check the system for your continuation. Sometimes you're like, I'm gonna check just to be checking. Mess around with them just to make sure. And so it's important. But once you have all of this in place, you good. It seems like a lot of information. In our reality, if you never had state funding, you don't have to worry about the sanction list and the stop payment list or being excluded because you ain't never had nothing to be stopped from, right? So we all right there already in good standing, right?
Right.
If we got our articles and corporations and EIN number, we good, right? We registered with our SAMS.gov, right? we good. But there's one other thing in all these, among all this. What is that one thing we have to do to link it all? We have to be what?
Sam.
No, y'all wasn't listening. Oh my goodness, my face is so well.
Gata.
Thank you. Oh, everybody say that together.
GATA certified.
You gotta be what?
GATA certified.
You gotta be enrolled in the GATA system. You give all this stuff in good standing, but if it's not linked, right?
But we would only see this page if we got it certified.
Exactly.
Right.
There's no linkage without this page. So somebody said, oh, you got to have this, and they're like, oh, I got all of that. But if it ain't in the system and it's not linking all these components together, it's irrelevant. There's no pre-qualification without this one system. So that's key. Have all your stuff there, but link it all together.
Okay, GATA first, then SAM.
You can do them all at the same time.
Well, you really want to.
It just, when you do the GATA, it's going to show you need SAMs. You can do this first before you do any, well, without, as other than the EIN number. If you go into the system and you got an EIN number and you ain't got no articles of closing the corporation because you need the EIN to link it to the system, that's the only thing you really need to link it to the system. If you register with this first, all of this is going to be in red. It's going to tell you, you still got to go back and do it. There's no way around it. So if you want to register with the system to tell you, hey, go get your SAMs, go get your articles and corporations. These going to be in red too. If you don't have no articles and corporation, because they can't determine who you are as an organization. It's just going to all be in red.
But it's, okay, when the federal excluded party, is that like you said, a person, if they had a PTP loan and didn't get it,
I was just using that as an example. That's not really linked to this. It was just an example.
That's
It was a metaphor.
what else would make them excluded from it?
So if you mismanaging funds, and when they come out and do the audit and they realize you mismanaging funds, if you allocating funds towards things other than what you said, they can put you on the list. If you owe them some money, at the end of the year, you ain't paying them back. Let's say they give you advance payment. We all love advance payment, right? Because we want to get paid in advance. You know, we can spend the money and get it paid afterward, or get advance and have a little money to work in the beginning stages, right? They gave us more money than what we spent. We are entitled to pay that money back. And trust me, I think I talked to the lady last week, and she said we're doing our financial report for 2023 because they're still working on 2022 in December. And they want to know how much money you spent and how much money I gave you. It's already calculated in the system. She went in the system already. She's like, oh, but you don't have to worry about this because you only got the amount of money that you requested. But if they start giving you all these advance payments and you're not getting reimbursement, you're going to get some money on the front end. And if you don't spend all the money, whatever you don't spend, you got to give it back.
So what is your bank account linked to there?
So what happens is a process.
Okay.
There's invoices you do, and you submit it to the state. The state do what they do, and they go through the financial approval, and they get a voucher. Once they have a voucher, they send it to the state controller office. Once the state controller office gets the voucher, they make a payment. So it's a process. And so once it's in the state controller office, they don't play around. Within 24 hours, I get a notification like, tomorrow you're getting your check. I'm like, oh, I checked the system yesterday, it wasn't there. Then they don't matter.
How do they monitor your spending?
Your invoices.
Okay.
Even if you get advance a payment, you still have to report on what you spent on every line item that you put in that grant. Personnel, finished benefits, travel, occupancy, miscellaneous, contracts, supplies, equipment, whatever. You have to submit these invoices on a monthly basis, and they get on a monthly basis, and they pay you on a monthly basis unless you ask for advance of payment. So advance of payment, you can ask for more than what you actually, going to have to expend, but you have to monitor that. I say if they send me a check, I'm just going to stay there until I spend it.
So when you write the grant, will you recommend that whatever budget you write, you make a template of it to keep?
They're going to give you a template. Okay. Dr. Marlin just mentioned they have the scas.gov website. every budget that comes with a contract on those levels, you gotta put it in that system. You can always go in that system and print out that budget. And then that budget have to go through approval process. You gotta go through a program approval, and then, and then a financial approval. So it's steps of approval to say, okay, we're gonna approve your budget. They may say, oh, well, I want you to change this. Go in the system, let's change it. I think we went back and forth a few times for some things. It's okay. They didn't approve it, that's not the end of the world. They told you they're gonna give you this contract, now go put it in the system. If they gave you the contract, they're gonna work with you about getting the budget to where it needs to be, to make sure you meet the requirements. They say, oh, but the standard payment is usually this, so bring this down some. So if I gotta take $3,000 off of this, I have to add that $3,000 somewhere else.
Right.
So you just gotta be creative on how you wanna use those expenses.
So I wanted to move on to the
Who is someone
next
that
one.
do you actually do all this stuff yourself? So
Yes. That's why I'm so fluent in it.
Who's the creative person that's actually putting your money where it has to go?
You talking about putting the money where I have to go?
All your money, you're doing all of this yourself.
I have systems in place. Like I talked about ADP. ADP is going to take money out the account and pay my salaries and do my reporting. So I have to oversee or have a human resource person, and when it comes down to expenses and stuff, we got to collect receipts. If I'm spending something, I'm going to pull that receipt, and I have my accountant that I added to my budget. I'm like, man, I need an accountant because I'm doing a little bit too much work over here. So I had to do a revision to add me an accountant. Look, I ain't getting no money these last few months. Let's put this money over here to an accountant. Now I got somebody to monitor receipts and budgets and stuff like that. They could do profits and loss and all those reporting and stuff, you know. And so that's important. You can have to look. It's almost time. Sonya.
The lady, last time we was here, she said that she was offered, $1 million or something.
Oh,
They couldn't be able to get it because.
when the person walked away.
Are you talking about when I was asking, somebody had to have a woman business, minority thing?
There may be a specific funding from a specific agency for someone who has this certification. It's always good to look at the eligibility criteria, because that's going to determine who qualifies for those funding. So if they say you have to have a certification, you don't have it, you're not going to be able to get it, unless you have a plan to get it within a time frame.
But you say you did say you can get a sponsor that do have.
It's a sub-recipient, yes. So what happens is you have some people that get large amount of funds. Matter of fact, we just got a person who got $4 million from the state, but they said, okay, I'm gonna provide all these services. They can't provide those services because they don't provide them. So what they do is they get all this money from the state to oversee their part of what they're gonna do, and then they allocate these funds towards different agencies or subcontractors to do the work they say they're gonna do within that proposal. So your audit is not as strict as if you are getting the funds yourself. You just reporting to the agency, and they gotta collect documentation from all the providers they got under them and report all that to the state. So it's not as strict when you are a sub-recipient. But then you have to see who's providing funds. You know, schools sometimes does that. They have contracts, and then they get funded, and then they provide agencies to come in and provide services, and they just pay them out of the money that they receive from the state. So it's called a sub-recipient.
I want to go to the next question. I know we want to get questions. Go ahead. I want to
Sub.
get questions.
Like Subway. Yeah.
I want to go to the next one. Okay. So listen, I understand the questions because we'll be here all night. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, so listen, I understand everybody has questions, which is great, but I know you all don't want to be here all night. I really don't want to be here all night. But I want to make sure we get through the presentation. So if there's questions that you have after us, definitely we can answer the questions that you
I
have.
think we
and we'll
got
be
one
here.
more slide, right?
Say this?
No, we got one more slide.
No, we have like
Yeah.
well
No, we left off
3.
here.
Oh, we
Yeah,
had 3
this is
more.
the last 2.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So this right here is your NOSA. Your notice of pretty much your funding that you get. And so when you are approved for a grant, you go into the area to say NOSA. And then you have to go here, you get to view it, and if you accept it, then you say I accept in the system. Just the beginning process. So here you'll see, oh, we have a few grants, we have to go in here and review the grant, and you have to either accept it or not accept it. You can reject it if you don't want it. You're like, well, I don't want to do that no more. you reject it. So this is the first part, once you get approved, is to say, okay, we're gonna go into an agreement, and then we'll go from there. And this is only one system. In the CAS system, you're gonna see your executed contracts and stuff. This right here is just like a notice to say, okay, we're gonna go into this agreement. So do you wanna work with us, do you not? And it'll tell you what that is. And all it should be agreement executed because I got all those contracts. But this is what it will look like. You'll go into this area here, notice of state award, and then you will review it and accept or decline it. That's simple. So if you got an email and say, hey, you got approved, this is where you're gonna check to accept that approval. All right, you go to the next one. No, sir? So this is where you're gonna do audits. So you have to do audits, it will be in this system. So as you see, I had to do that. And I don't know why, because it's not a required audit. It's something I said I was gonna do myself. I did do it, I just gotta upload the documents. But it doesn't prevent me from being in good standing because it's not a state requirement.
So what type of audit is that?
So this right here is a personal audit.
Okay.
So you get the, if you get funding under 300,000, you don't necessarily have to do audits. And this first funding was under, I think it was 300. And so I didn't have to, but I said, because I want to check my records to make sure I'm where I need to be when the state do come out, I said, I'm going to do that. And I actually just had that done. So it doesn't affect my pre-qual because it's not a state requirement. But because I said I was going to do it, they're going to make me do it. Right? I was telling Dr. Marlon, like, I should never said that. But I got my review back. It was good. So I just got to upload it in the system. And then in the last one, and this, we went over every component that's in the system. Each slide represents a different area that's in the system and what it will look like. And the last one just like, okay, who are your users? So you got more than one person that's going to be in the system. You got more than one executive person that's going to have access to going in and accept and approve. You could register how many usernames. As you see, I was playing this system. I'm like, oh, I don't see my name. I'm going to add myself again. I add myself twice. But, and then the contact person, who is going to be the main contact person. And then you add that. But that's the end of the whole site within itself. So, any questions?
Question?
That's enough questions already, right? Go ahead. Go ahead.
How important is it to have all your documentation lined up when you're registering your business for the SAMS.gov?
It's very imperative because it makes the process go simpler. Because it's questions and stuff, so when you go through those different questions, you have everything in order, it makes things go a little easier.
You haven't mentioned that you have to stay, not let the SAM lapse.
Yes, annually you gotta update it.
No, yeah, we had said you gotta do it annually.
When you log into SAM, it's gonna say update entity, that's what you're gonna click. And they're just gonna ask you if everything is the same. If everything is the same, you could just click yes, 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 and it just keep going from tab to tab to tab until you finish. So it's not like you gotta go in depth, you just click and tab from tab.
I think I had to do something new because I had to get the UEI number, and so that was a process.
Yeah. See, that's a whole different process. Yes.
Hey, well, we can't hear the question. I know everybody got questions. We almost finished.
Is there ever a time, like you said, you have a process when you do the NOSA, you can either decline or accept? Is there ever a time when you would decline? I could imagine decline.
Yeah, I was declined before.
You would?
Yeah, I
Could you
was.
give an example?
That I was declined for a grant that I applied for.
No.
No,
when they already
she's
did
talking
tell
about
you.
when you get approved and then you choose to decline.
You need to choose
Oh,
to
no, I don't
decline.
turn down
No.
the money. People that deal with a little anxiety, they may get overwhelmed with the process. And if they're dealing with mental health, they may decide, okay, this seems like a lot of work, I don't want to do it. And so a person may decline for that.
or you may feel like, okay, this is a bit much. So it depends on a person's psychological state when they get accepted. Because you're gonna be challenged, like, I said, I'm gonna do all this. Can I really do all this? And then you gotta remember, yeah, they're gonna give me funding to do all this. So sometimes you gotta do the positive affirmation, that positive self-talk, like the reality check. I don't have to come out of a lot of things. I might have to come up with some beginning stages or whatever to kind of work the process after it's a delay. But everything I invest, I am gonna get a return back on my investment. I'm gonna get it back, you know? And so that'd be one thing a person may deal with, anxiety,
And you can
the fear.
reallocate the funds, you say what you got approved, you said what you were gonna do, and then you decide, hey, I wanna reallocate some money.
It gotta get approved. You can't just do that.
Oh.
You gotta do a budget revision to do that. And that has to be approved by the state before you reallocate funds. You can't just go reallocate funds that haven't been approved upon. There's a process for that.
We got one more question, then we're gonna have to wrap up.
You mentioned a couple times different ways, just now you said, you were your investment, another time you said you may get reimbursement.
So there are different types. So when I say I'm gonna get reimbursed, well, for my investment, meaning, let's say I'm starting an organization and I'm gonna have to front up the money that cover these items.
Yeah.
Because you could do reimbursement. That means I'm putting the money up front and I'm gonna get my money back.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say I'm gonna get a return on my
So some
investment.
grants are,
You could do the reimbursement, or you could do the advance. You know, even sometimes when you first get in a new contract, sometimes the advance may be delayed because it's new and they got a lot of contracts they gotta work through. But when you get advance, you can ask for a larger amount of money than the natural just reimbursement. When I say I'm gonna get a return my funds.
cash flow, you can afford to do those types.
And you know you're gonna get it back because it's already written in the grant and you can already give an account for it. So.
Can we give a hand?
In that aspect, are you using business loans if you don't have the money?
You can use your personal, you can use business loan, if you have other source of income.
Hold on, bring it
sustain
down,
things,
so we can get this last little piece.
or whatever, you can do that too. As long as it's documented and you pay the expenses for it and it's documented, you'll be reversed for those items.
Can we give a hand to Dr. Kemper and Dr. Haywood?
Is it okay if I do a video for my Insta story? I love y'all energy.
Look who we do.
I want to say thank you to everybody. Y'all wave, say hey. So listen, we just finished our nonprofit